Welcome, everybody. My name is Bruce Karasik. I'm one of the co-founders of the Jewish Republican Alliance. So happy that you are here tonight. We're so excited and thrilled to have Candace Owens here. Where's Candace? Where is she? She's here. And we're on stage. We're also so very grateful to have Mr. Larry Elder here today. The Jewish Republican Alliance always likes to honor our veterans. Are there any veterans in the room? If you are, please stand. Give them a nice hand. Tonight's event is being filmed by Harmony Event Productions. They did all the audio visual, all the screens, so thank you, Daniel, and your entire crew for that. In all of our Jewish Republican Alliance events and in our literature, we always say we're taking a stand for America and Israel. And so I would like to invite you all to please stand as Cantor Alicia Pierce leads us in the Star-Spangled Banner and Hatikva. Here's Alicia.
Please join me. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight, oh, the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave? And please join me. Kol od balevav penima nefesh Yehudi homiya ulfatem mizrak kadima ayin letzion Sophia. Od lo avta tikvatenu, hatikva bat shnot alpayim, liyotam chofshi me'artzenu Eretz Zion ירושלים, להיות עם חופשי בארצנו, ארץ ציון, ירושלים.
So first, I want to praise all of you who are here tonight for your courage and for your patriotism. I praise you for showing up, for standing up, for making your presence known tonight and your voices heard. You are all heroes for being here tonight and by letting the world know that this is still the land of the free and the home of the brave. So I would like to dedicate this evening to courage. The people with whom I share this stage exemplify courage. In a speech to Liberty University, Candace Owens, and I paraphrase, said, "I have been smeared, I've been libeled, I've been protested, I've been kicked out of restaurants, I've been assaulted, I've been called anti-black, anti-LGBT, I've been called a Nazi sympathizer because I have this idea that we don't accept ourselves as oppressed. We accept ourselves as a victor of our experiences, and we can achieve much more in life that way." Candace, your courage and your wisdom is an inspiration to us all. And the Jewish Republican Alliance is honored to have you here tonight. Wherever she is. I don't know where she is. In my mind, when I think of courageous people, Larry Elder is at the top of the list. Larry, we salute you this evening for your courage and the personal sacrifice that you have shown for years by speaking the truth no matter what others may say. And Larry is yet to demonstrate his courage one more time again. He recently invited my wife Judy and I to a private screening in Beverly Hills of his new documentary called Uncle Tom. Now, this great movie is about the difficulties of being a black conservative in America. It is a must-see. Candace is actually featured a lot in the film, and the Jewish Republican Alliance is going to be doing a screening with Larry, so stay tuned for an upcoming date. You all want to come and see that, and when it's out, you want to go see it. We also admire the courage of President Trump. Who has stood up to a barrage of attacks from the left for 3 years and is unwavering in his love for America and the Jewish people. We admire the courage of our firefighters and our police officers, many of whom are here tonight. They have helped our community through some of the most difficult and devastating fires and shootings, and we want to tell them how much we appreciate what they have done for us. It takes courage to stand up for what you believe in, and the Jewish Republican Alliance is not backing down. We will continue to fight for freedom of speech, to keep the presumption of innocence for those who are accused of a crime. We will fight for capitalism and freedom and all the innovation and prosperity that comes with it, and to make sure that America never becomes a socialist country. As we just did, we will respectfully stand for our national anthem and continue to recite the Pledge of Allegiance. We will continue to honor freedom, liberty, legally welcome all races to our country, and not judge people by the color of their skin, but the content of their character. We will continue to support Israel, the one true democracy and our closest ally in the Middle East, and strongly oppose BDS and other forms of anti-Semitism. And we will continue to believe in America, America and American exceptionalism, and our amazing Constitution. We recently had Alan Dershowitz speak to the Jewish Republican Alliance. And in his closing remarks, he said, "Strength comes before peace. So stay strong, stick to your principles, and we will prevail." Thank you. There's a few people I'd like to acknowledge before I give the microphone to Mitch. A special thank you to my wife, Judy, who tirelessly put this whole thing together. Thank you, Judy. There she is. On behalf of the JRA Board of Directors, a heartfelt thank you to all our VIP sponsors for their generosity, without whom this evening would not be possible. Thank you. So I suppose you saw the police officers here. A special thank you to Howard Horowitz, retired police officer and good friends who coordinated all the security for us tonight. Where's Howard? Oh, there he is. Special thank you to my daughter, Tracy Karasik of TLK Multimedia. She put together these videos you've been watching. All three of my kids, Josh, Allie, Tracy, all conservative. We got lucky. A big thank you to all of our volunteers for checking people in and your continued dedication and commitment to the JRA. Thank you all. I want to thank the always friendly and helpful Gina Florio, Candace's manager, for all her help in putting this together. And also a big thank you to Debbie Millman, who helped us do this. She was so very instrumental in this. And also to Kim Millman as well for their help. Thank you. Thank you to Christina Klasky and the Marriott Hotel. It looks like we found a new home. Thank you. I also want to acknowledge a couple of people in the audience. My good friend, writer, historian, mentor, conservative commentator, and leader in our community, Mr. Larry Greenfield, is here. Another great friend, another leader. He is always there every time the JRA calls him. He's an amazing attorney, a speaker, radio talk show host, author of 2 great best-selling books that I highly recommend. The first one, Atheism Kills, and the second one, The Rise of the Sex Machines. Mr. Barak Lurie is here. Thank you, Barak. And finally, one more big thank you to all our JRA members who have supported us, helped us, and given their time, energy, and their devotion. To all of you, we are so very grateful. Thank you. And now, Mr. Mitch Silberman, JRA co-founder. Mitch.
Another great speech. Wasn't Bruce terrific? Doesn't he write the best speeches? How can you be a Republican? You're Jewish. How can you be a Republican? You're African American. How can you be a Republican? You're gay. How can you be a Republican? You're Hispanic. How many have heard these words before? How many have had it said to them before? I have. Well, as Bob Dylan penned many decades ago, the times, they are changing. You are witnessing history being made on so many fronts right now. And I will submit that if you're involved with the Jewish Republican Alliance, or Candace's Blexit organization, or TPUSA, or Charlie Kirk's organization, yes, I know we have Charlie Kirk's people out there, or PragerU, I'll submit that you are helping shape history. You are helping make history. And for that, you should be acknowledged. Speaking of history, George Washington fathered our country. Abraham Lincoln united our country. Ronald Reagan renewed our country. And Donald J. Trump has rescued our country. His list of accomplishments are so astounding that, mark my words, if he was a Democrat, they would already be etching his likeness onto Mount Rushmore. But they won't, because OMB. What's OMB, you ask? Orange man bad. Orange man bad. That's what they're obsessed with. And it's such a shame, because his policies and his results have had a profoundly positive impact on millions and millions of people here and abroad. But for them, it's OMB. Now, for those of you who have been to JRA events in the past, you know how much Bruce and I relish sharing with you that it matters not if you're Republican, Democrat, Independent, Jewish, Christian, Catholic, Muslim, atheist, it doesn't matter. This is where you belong. We love having you at our events. You're always welcome, in fact, encouraged to attend Jewish Republican Alliance events. If you love America and you love Israel, this is your home. This is where you belong. Now, for our Christian friends in the audience, what does WWJD stand for? What would Jesus do? Now, stop for a moment. Did you ever think you would hear one of the founders of the Jewish Republican Alliance mention Jesus' name from the stage at a big event? So I'm going to offer you a slight variation for you to consider. WWYD. What will you do? What will you do? We are less than 8 months away from the most consequential election of our lifetime. What will you do to help ensure the outcome we all want? Will you donate? Will you organize? Will you volunteer? Will you write letters to the editor? Will you register people to vote? Will you run for office? Will you support those that run for office? Will you share thoughtful articles and videos? Will you turn people onto talk radio? Because now, more than ever, conservative activism is needed to take care and preserve the Judeo-Christian values upon which our beloved country was founded. Now more than ever, you need to get involved. This is your time to stay informed, get involved, and make a difference. This is your time to help create the outcome and the future that you and your family deserve. So, are you ready to take a stand for America? Are you ready to take a stand for Israel? Then may God bless you, may God bless these United States of America, and may God bless President Donald J. Trump. And now I have the distinct honor of introducing someone who needs no introduction. The Sage. Best-selling author and radio talk show host Larry Elder. The great Eldersky, the Sage from South Central. He has hosted the longest-running afternoon drive time radio show in Los Angeles, The Larry Elder Show. Larry sizzled on the airwaves with his thoughtful insight on the day's most provocative issues to the delight, consternation, and entertainment of his listeners. Please give a warm welcome to Larry Elder.
My goodness, thank you. Thank you so much. I think I'm gonna quit while I'm ahead. Good night, everybody. Thank you so much. My goodness. When Bruce asked me to introduce Candace Owens, I immediately said yes. I have been called a number of names Candace can identify. I've got a documentary, as was mentioned. It's called Uncle Tom. And in the documentary, Candace mentions the worst thing, the most bizarre thing she's ever been called, which is a white supremacist. Well, I've been called a flag-waving, Jew-loving Uncle Tom. And I've always said I'll cop to two of them. I mentioned that story to my girlfriend, and she said, "Which two?" I looked at some of the people that I have fingerprints on in the 30 years or so that I've been doing this. You know, I met one of my mentors, Walter Williams, in the early 90s. I met another mentor, Thomas Sowell, about 30 years ago. And I looked at some of the people that I would like to say that I've influenced. There is a young man who's a young conservative. I first had him on when he was a student at UCLA. He later on has now become a mega conservative with a lot of influence and has publicly credited me with getting him to think about becoming a conservative commentator. His name is Ben Shapiro. There is another young man who started a media company. His biggest mentor was his late father-in-law, Orson Bean, but he also publicly credited me with getting him to look at the liberal bias in the media and to go into this field. His name is Andrew Breitbart. Another young man was an intern when he was in college, and he is now editor-in-chief of Breitbart. His name is Alex Marlow. This young man I had on when he was a teenager at Santa Monica High. He came on my show 69 times. I know that because he told me he counted them. He went on to Duke, then to Washington, D.C., where he was a low-level staffer for Senator Jeff Sessions. Sessions lent him to the Donald Trump campaign. He's now one of Donald Trump's senior advisors and one of his principal speechwriters. His name is Stephen Miller. A young lady also who's become a very prominent and proud conservative had her first radio interview on the Larry Elder Show. Her name is Michelle Malkin. But our next speaker is in a category all by herself. She is from New England, from Connecticut. She and I both went to college in Rhode Island. She founded an organization called Blexit. I'm confident that Donald Trump will get a substantially higher percentage of the black vote than he did in 2016. And if I am right, a lot of the credit goes to our next speaker. In our film, we interviewed a number of young and older conservatives, including Herman Cain and Alan West, a young man named Brandon Tatum, a man named Bob Whitson, who's been an activist for a very long time on the East Coast. And at the end of each person, at the end of the closing credits, we put a little line about what they all do. Bob Whitson, president of the Whitson Foundation, Alan West, former congressman from Florida, and the last one was our next speaker. Her name, Candace Owens, and underneath that it says, badass. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Candace Owens.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. Hello. What are you guys doing here? The coronavirus. Aren't you supposed to be quarantining yourselves? Thank you so much, you guys. Have a seat. And I just want to start by saying, if somebody had told me when I got into this 3.5 years ago that Larry Elder would be introducing me, I would have thought they were lying. Absolutely floored. The greatest honor is to be in the room with this man. You don't even understand. My journey to conservatism, and it's a long story, and a lot of you guys know how I became a conservative, but you don't know what the aha moment was when I realized something was wrong. When I realized that this person who I did not think was equipped to be the President of the United States, when I saw him come down that escalator, I instantly said, no, he doesn't have the right decorum. This is the guy that says you're fired. He'd make a mockery of the White House. He's not professional enough. We can't go from cool talking Obama to this guy who's so bombastic. Those were my initial thoughts. And then something weird happened. The media started saying that this guy, who they celebrated for decades, I grew up culturally, I grew up listening to hip hop. Everybody wanted to be like Trump. Every black hip hop artist wanted to be like Trump. It was in the music. Beyonce and Jay-Z and their music, they were sipping poolside at Mar-a-Lago. Isn't that owned by Donald Trump? And in a nanosecond, I watched the media who celebrated try to tell me that he was not just not equipped, but that he was a racist, a sexist, a misogynist, a homophobe. Every word, at one point they even said he was incestuous. You remember that? And he had feelings for his daughter. Remember that whole narrative they were putting out there? They said he was a rapist. I went, oh my, he's been getting away with this for decades? Decades? And of course I went, something's not right here. And so really the media, who hates me so much, created me because they just overplayed their hand. That was it. They overplayed their hand. And so I said, and I'm still watching the election, and then I say, something's not right here. And I watch his speech. I watch Trump's speech in Dimondale, Michigan. And he lists all of the ways that the black community is hurting. This is what's happening to you guys in your homes and your streets. Here's the crime, high crime. Black America, remember the infamous, what do you have to lose, right? And I watched the speech and I went, yeah, he's kind of right here. And then I turned on the TV and they said, how racist. How racist that he is saying that this is the way black America lives. And I said, oh, are we pretending black America's living great now? I mean, streets of Chicago, Baltimore, all of these murderous capitals of the world where black Americans live, we're now supposed to pretend because Jake Tapper's going, just the racism coming out of this man, right? And I said, whoa, 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 this seems really crazy. So what I did next was I said, maybe I'm, conservative curious. I'm not conservative, don't call me conservative. But I'm conservative curious, right? And I pulled out my laptop and I started doing some research and I hit the internet and I found this clip. And if you have not seen this clip, this will be your homework tonight. You need to go watch this clip of Larry Elder speaking to Dave Rubin on his show, okay? For those of you that haven't seen it, I'll tell you exactly what happened in this clip. So you've got them sitting across, and at this time, Dave Rubin is a self-professed liberal, and he starts the conversation off. They both like each other. It's a warm environment, and he says, Larry, I'm happy to have this conversation with a conservative because I'm pretty sure I can make you understand that you should be a liberal. And that was Dave Rubin's first mistake. I've watched this tape down to a science. And they get talking, and Dave Rubin, to his credit, who is a dear friend of mine, he's a dear friend of Larry's today, was just trying to be nice, genuinely just trying to be nice, which is typically what liberals are trying to do. The ones that aren't crazy radical are just trying to be nice. And he said, how can you ignore the fact, Larry, that there is some systemic oppression that affects black Americans? And Larry instantly went in very quickly, said, list it, what is it? Tell me what it is. What is the oppression? How am I being harmed as a black American sitting in this chair? List it. I hear about it all the time. Tell me how I am oppressed. And then Larry, and then Dave made the mistake of saying police brutality. He said police brutality, that black Americans are being brutalized by police officers. And in what can only be described as an intellectual assassination. Assassination. Someone should have called the cops. Larry should be in prison today. He shouldn't be on the stage. I was a witness to it. I saw it. I would have stood up against him and said, that man committed murder, okay? He just went through every number in a way that I couldn't even believe it. This is how many blacks have died, and you're trying to tell me a black-on-black crime, which is, I think you said something like 96% of blacks are killed by other blacks, and you have a higher chance of being struck by lightning as a black person in America than you do of being shot and armed by police officers. And it was an amazing moment because he didn't just assassinate Dave Rubin, he assassinated any liberal that might have been in me in that day. And I went, oh my gosh, how could I have fallen when he so clearly has the facts on his side? How is it plausible that I fell for this my entire life, that I believe that the media was really just trying to let me know how I'm being harmed as a black person in this country? I thought the media had my best interest at heart. Today I had the honor of hosting Dennis Prager on my show today, who is a wonderful man, and my show is hosted by his wonderful Prager University. And I have him on, this is the second time I've had him on, and I said, Dennis, you can ask anyone. I say there are two people that have been my favorite episodes on this show, and it has been you, and it has been Larry Elder. I didn't even know he was introducing me tonight, so I wasn't even going for brownie points. And I said to him, you know, the reason is because there's a wisdom. There's a wisdom when I'm speaking to Larry, or I'm speaking to Dennis Prager, that is being passed down to me. I'm not interviewing, I'm learning. I'm a student in those scenarios. And I said to him why it's become increasingly more important to me to speak to older people. And this is something that you will notice if you really pay attention to it. I had Sheriff Clark, you'll remember he used to be on the news all the time in 2016, on my show. And I noticed that he hasn't been in the news anymore. And he and I were talking, and I said, yeah, you know, where have you been? We haven't seen you much. And he said, you know, I've taken a step back from the news cycle to study and to read and to learn more, because I realized, Candace, and this next sentence sent a chill down my spine, that we're losing the black intellectuals. It's a very, very heavy statement. We're losing the black intellectuals. And he said, we have Condoleezza Rice, we have Thomas Sowell, we have Walter Williams, we have Larry Elder. Who's the next generation of black intellectuals? And I went, oh my goodness. The weight of that statement was so heavy when he said it. And I said this to Dennis today on my show. And I explained to him how fearful I was. And he said, well, you know, you're right that there's the same I could say for Jewish. I said, nope, you've got Ben Shapiro. I can name other people, the white intellectuals, but particularly black intellectuals. They're endangering, it's an endangered species right now, and there's a reason for that. At the nucleus of everything that the left sells, all of the lies and all of the deception, it is all held together by black Americans being deluded and believing in their own victimhood, right? And this is why I say that the black race is still enslaved. It's a different kind of enslavement. It's not physical anymore, it's mental. And they need us to believe in our own victimhood in order for them to spread their bad ideas. We are the linchpin for all of the left's bad ideas. To the left, because I am a woman and I am black, I should sit at the top of the progressive stack, and they need me to believe in my own victimhood. The narrative needs to be black versus white, man versus woman, right? This is what they're selling, and black America sits at the linchpin. How have they been able to accomplish it? Dennis said that to me. He's like, really, I'm just trying to understand how, if you look at everything they've done to the black community, how is it plausible that black Americans are still voting for Democrats? How are they not thinking about this? And I said, you know, Dennis, the issue is they are thinking about it. They are thinking about it because they're actively learning this. If you are educated, if you learn everything you're supposed to learn via the public school system, you will come out and you say, Republicans are racist, conservatives are racist, Democrats have always had my back. That is a token of education today. We're actively learning that the parties magically switch, that there was just one day and someone said, you know what, I don't want to be Republican anymore. Do you want to be Democrat? Well, let's just switch. Let's all of us just switch. The Southern strategy myth is taught actively in school. They've got the first 18 years to brainwash children in school. And because parents are busy, which is understandable, and you want to believe that you can trust that when you send your children to school, they're doing the right thing, they're not looking, they're not peering around the corner to see what exactly it is that is being taught in the school system. last week I had two girls. I used to nanny for two Jewish girls in Manhattan, and they were twins, and they went to a school called Rodef Shalom. They literally, yeah, right, Rodef Shalom, $37,000 a year when I babysat for them when they were 8. I lost touch with them, and they've been trying to reach me since things blew up for me for years, and they tried my fan page, and by chance, I got their email, and they said, "We cannot believe you're Republican. We never knew. We're 16 now, and we're going to APAC. Can we see you?" Yes. So I said, yes, Sydney and Jordan, I'd love to see you. And I made time. I walked over to APAC, and I went and grabbed a coffee with them. And I said, what's it like, being Republican in school? And do you want to know what's going on at their now $57,000 per year per a child school, private education in New York? On the first day of school for a 16-year-old, she told me the first thing that they are showed is their safe space. That's the tour of the school. Right? This didn't happen when I was in school, so it would seem not plausible to me that it goes on now. I'm pretty young. It's their safe space. The second thing she told me is that they're all required to take a diversity class. And here's the thing about the left, right? Whenever you hear a class like that, you know what to expect, right? You hear a class called Women's Studies, you're not studying women, you're studying how to hate men. You hear a class called African American Studies, you're not learning real black history, you're learning how to hate white people. You hear a class called Gender Studies, you're not learning about, there's only 2, it shouldn't take a whole semester, first off. Should be able to teach that class pretty quickly, but they're not learning about that, they're learning about how to be confused and think that there is 30 million genders, right? It's the opposite. So I said, what happens in your diversity class, Jord? And she said, well, we are encouraged to go around the class and share why we feel guilty for being white. And of course, now the left, I'm sure you guys are Jewish, it doesn't matter, they don't care if you're Jewish. If your skin color is white, you're white now. And so they make the kids go around in class and talk about why they feel guilty. And she said at one point, one white girl starts crying and said, I just feel so guilty about my skin color. And in that moment she was telling me this, I realized first and foremost, I probably shouldn't become a parent too soon because I will be in that principal's office every single day, right? Every day. I'll be like, get up, we're going to school. We are going to school, literally. What do you want to wear today? Because I got to go talk to your principal about what happened yesterday. That will be me as a parent, guaranteed. And I'm sitting here just trying to imagine this in the inverse. Right? Could you just imagine, I send my child to school, my black child to school, and she says we had to go around the room and talk about why we're sorry for being black. It couldn't happen. This could never happen. And I'm thinking, this is insane. Then she tells me, because Black History Month just passed, that they had an assembly, and she was so nice. She said, I'm totally happy to have, an assembly on Black history. I think it's good to talk about Black history, but you want to know what the assembly was? They weren't studying Black history. The assembly at this $57,000 per year elite Manhattan school invited every black person in the room to stand on stage and yell at the white people and tell them what they don't understand. So it's a little some me and Larry would just be up here like, you know what's wrong with you? You guys right here, you with your skin color, what you don't get? What you don't understand is my pain, my history. A full hour allowing the black kids to stand on stage and tell them what they don't understand about their privilege and how their skin color hurts them. How is this legal? How is this allowed? I said, all right, George, give me another subject. This is all crazy, but what's the homework like? She said, do you want to know what paper I just finished? By the way, I wish I was making all of this up. I wish I was a compulsive liar. It's all true, right? She said, the first paper that she had to write, the teacher said, should we call Columbus Day anymore, or should we change the name to Indigenous People Day because Columbus is now offensive? That is their homework in English class, to write a paper. And she said every single person in the class agreed that it should be called Indigenous People Day except for her. I was so proud of her for that. She stood by her guns. And she said, I wrote a paper, and she got a B+, and explaining why it shouldn't. And I said to her, first and foremost, Jordan, if you get any more of these papers, please allow me to write them, right? Please allow me to be your ghostwriter. I know I'm busy, but I will make time for that, okay? And this is the lunacy. This is the idea. And I've realized this. I couldn't put my finger on it. What is going on in America when I visit these college campuses? What is it about leftists that makes them so insane versus the rest of the rational world? This is a unique kind of insanity, right? I've been exploring it. I'm documenting it, the things that I see, the creatures that I encounter. And I'm just keeping it in my diary. Today I encountered a shrieking feminist, right? Who told me, she was ashamed of me and why I couldn't think this as a woman of color, even though she was white, right? And I finally figured it out. The left has no idea that anything existed before 1776. Their entire reference starts with America. They have no idea, they know nothing about the world beyond 1776. So morality is judged by what has happened since America has been here, right? What has happened since America became a country in 1776? And I'll give you a perfect example of that. You guys will all remember in the amazing week, right, when General Soleimani of Iran was slain by a military operation, right? Would have been a round of applause if Obama had done it, but no. It was done under the Trump administration, so this is bad. And it was an amazing week because it was the week where we got to watch the left, who has been shrieking about feminism and misogyny and Me Too, turn into adamant defenders of the Iranian regime, right? Adamant defenders, instantly. Right? This isn't a wonderful country. How could Trump do this amazing country, these poor Iranian people? And I'm thinking, so the Iranian constitution literally states that a woman's life is worth half that of a man's. You want to talk about rape, you want to talk about the way women are treated, 10 years in prison if they remove their headscarf? Suddenly they became staunch defenders. Like this was the place they wanted to send their kids for boarding school, but Trump blew up the general and now they can't, right? That was what we were going through that week. And a tweet went out that week that should never be overlooked because I went, see, I knew I was right. That was my hypothesis. They don't know anything about the world before 1776. And it was from everybody's favorite anti-American, Colin Kaepernick. He is a full-time job, hating America. And in defense of Iran, he said, this is nothing new. America has always been a country that imperializes black and brown bodies, and this is nothing new. This is what white people do to imperialize black and brown bodies and started talking about military expansion of Western ideals. And because I am first and foremost a philanthropist, I decided to respond to his tweet and just clue him into the fact that Iran used to be called Persia, and they used to rape and pillage and kill people, and it was a literal imperial dynasty for hundreds of years, right? Because he probably has no idea. And this really lets you know that that is it. They genuinely believe that everything bad that was done in this world has only been done by white people. The color of the skin, that's it. They don't know anything about all of the emperors that existed. They don't even know the Egyptian Empire, the Ottoman Empire, the Chinese empires, nothing. They know none of it. Their frame is it only mattered when white people did it. And this is why slavery is all we can discuss now. It's all about slavery. Someone clued me into the fact that the New York Times is saying that now they're calling it the 1619 Project, right? That we should start counting everything that's happened in America starting in 1619 because that's when slavery started upon this continent. As if slavery was only a sin that was done by the West, only done by Americans, only done upon this continent. And they believe in these flowery depictions, of course, of indigenous people. That's why I wanted to write our paper. They were just, the indigenous people were just planting pots and growing flowers and then here came the evil white man with their guns. But they were just trying to farm and say, okay, come, it's fine. And they were just being nice people and kumbayaing and communicating to one another. This is the idea. It's a Disney Pocahontas movie. That is the history they know. Every Disney movie is their reality, right? And I'm like, do you know anything about what the native indigenous people in the Americas did before the West got here? For years, the West tried to deny this. The intellectuals, the academics tried to wipe this clear and say, no, it never happened. The cannibalism of the Native American tribes never happened. They said, oh, that's just, white men were saying that because they wanted to justify their imperialistic pursuits. And then sometime in 2000, because of anthropology, we were able to determine that yes, in fact, they were eating one another. Yes, in fact, they were sacrificing children. Yes, in fact, the Aztec Empire slaughtered hundreds and thousands of people to sacrifice them to the gods, right? We want rain, we must slaughter 26 children under the age of 5 years old. That actually happened. 26 children under the age of 5 years were slaughtered, sacrificed to the rain god, right? We want to make sure we have good crops, we have to slaughter X amount of people. In one day, when the Aztecs made their temple major, they slaughtered 20,000 people to sacrifice, because that was what was required in order for the gods, this polytheistic worldview, in order for them to bless their society. That is what they considered something to be a requirement: blood, death. And then they would give the scraps of the sacrifice, they'd give it out to people that watched the ceremonies, right? But hey, let's call Indigenous People Day, right? Let's call Indigenous People Day. They were good people, right? And I always say that's not to attack, to say, the Native Americans got what they deserve, or anything like that, right? But that is just to simply do something the left never does, which is to tell the whole truth. Tell the whole truth. Human history is complex, it's ugly, it is brutish, and there is no person that stands no person stands guiltless when you look at human history in the way that the world was. But I will tell you that there are people that stand in strong example of where the world is today. The reason that we have the society that we have today, the reason that we can call for more morality, the reason that the left can say things are immoral, is thanks to Judeo-Christian beliefs that built this society. Because this tribalism, this idea that you could just, kill someone and sacrifice them to the gods, that was mirrored in what was necessary to maintain. It was a polytheistic worldview, right? There were multiple gods, and all you had to do was make sacrifice to the gods. So morality wasn't needed. It was more sacrifice that was needed. Until some guys in Greece, the Greek miracle happened, and they said, maybe there's something more going on, right? When people started to move towards a monotheistic worldview, maybe there's just one God. Maybe their morals matter, right? Maybe we should be thinking more. The world moved in a direction that it had never been in prior in all of ancient human history. They began developing technology. When we say the West is the best, we mean it. And when the left challenges that, ask them, then why don't you send your kids to the East? Tell me where you would like your kids to live in the East. And they'll never give you a country, because they know that the West is the best. And the West is the best because of Judeo-Christian values that we have held close and that we have close to our heart, and that we have endeared to the values of this society. That is something that is so true, and it is not taught. If real history was taught, if people learned about that Greek miracle, if people learned about how much society grew when the concept of freedom arose in the mind because of their faith in God, and when that concept of freedom burned so much in our forefathers that they were the first ones ever to have the idea that maybe slavery was wrong. You see, you'll get that version of history where they'll tell you that the white man had slaves, but they will never tell you that the evil white men were the first ones that got rid of the institution of slavery, right? Because that's an inconvenient truth. It's an inconvenient truth. And it's so important, it really is important that we start getting out these facts and we start getting out these truths. And for me, when I felt the pressure, when I woke up and I realized and I got smacked by Larry Elder in a video, and I said, wow, everything that I ever thought was wrong. That's a heavy, heavy feeling. It's a heavy emotion. And the main ingredient, why you say, why are there so many people who know they're wrong and they don't just admit it, is because it takes a tremendous amount of humility to admit that you knew nothing, right? It takes a tremendous amount of humility, and not everybody has it, to say, you know what, the last 25 years has been a lie. That is what I had to admit to myself. You go through cognitive dissonance. Imagine going through life convinced that the white man was bad, that men were bad, learning all of these things, and then realizing that it could have just been flip-flop and it was all upside down. You start to question your sanity. Could I be a conservative? Am I not just conservative curious? Am I going to do this thing, right? And I did. I did that thing. And I said to myself, what do I do now? And I hit the books, and I thank God that there were so many black conservatives who wrote so many books before me. I consider them my forefathers, the Thomas Sowells, the Walter Williams, the Larry Elders, and I read these books and I said, I've got the facts on my side, now what? Now what? Every single person in this room knows what journey I'm talking about. You know, I think I'm more Jewish than half of the Jews out there. I'm like, but I'm not a Zionist, Candace. I'm like, what does that mean? What does that mean? You know, I was like, you don't think Israel deserves a nation state? What does that mean exactly? You know, I'm not in it to help my own people, is what that really says, right? I don't think that my people, after thousands of years of suffering, deserve to have a home, right? I don't even understand what that means. That uphill battle that you guys face is the uphill battle that I face, right? Trying to get people to understand and to realize that they have been held back, that they have been lied to, and that by simply flipping a switch, by changing your mind, by accepting that maybe you didn't know it all, that narcissistic viewpoint that has become commonplace on the left, thinking the world revolves around them, thinking the world is happening to them, never ever stopping to pause and think, maybe I am happening to the world. Maybe I can be responsible for myself. That all takes a lot of humility, and it takes a lot of practice. You know, I always tell the story about when I was required to take Feminism 101, to talk about a disaster. Not for me, for my teacher. Great time for me. Great time for me. And what's remarkable about this is that I was a liberal. If anybody had come into class at that time, I was in my freshman year of college, and my teacher, I was required to take Feminism 101, and if she had come around and asked and said, who's liberal, I would have put my hand up. I would have said, of course, I'm black. Come on, don't be ridiculous. Of course I'm liberal. And but this class was weird. This class got real weird real quick. And if she said, hey, don't you think women and men should have equality? I would have said, yes, of course. But really what this class was a textbook, and I would really like to find what that textbook was, because it apparently held every problem that women have ever encountered since the beginning of time. It was like a Bible for female problems, right? And the class was pretty much just our professor. She would open the book and find one problem, and she would turn to the class and she'd say, why is this happening? And the answer was very simple. It was a very easy way to get an A in the class. The answer was always because of men. It never changed, not once, right? Any problem, always since the beginning of time, was because of men. I mean, it could have been anything. You know, why do women get lost with directions more on the road? Thank you guys, all A's. Everybody here is walking out of the store with an A tonight, okay? And I was sitting in that class and I'm thinking, maybe something else is going on. Is it really just everything is because of men? And I would always push back on her just a little, and she'd get upset. And then there was the big class, and this class only mattered in the retrospect. And she came in and she opened the textbook and she plucked out a problem, and the problem was, why is it that 85% of people that are suffering from eating disorders in America are women? And the answer, of course, that we were supposed to say, and the class did it. They said, because of men. It's easy, no brainer. And she said, yes. And then she'd go on to her diatribe and she said, and that is proven by the fact that men are controlling the advertising agencies. And they are telling women that they have to be skinny and beautiful. It is their money that is saying how women have to think. And in my head, I was thinking, I feel like girls calling each other fat is like a exclusive girl-on-girl crime a little bit, you know? I haven't heard any guys be like, you're fat, you know, it's girls do that a lot. And so I was sitting in the back of the class and I couldn't stand it anymore. So I went, okay, fine, all right, I'm putting my hand up. And she looked at me and, you know, looked around me, like anybody but Candace. And then she went, what, Candace? And I said, I just feel like maybe something else could potentially be going on besides like because of men. And she said something that I will never forget. And I've told the story many times. She said, Candace, I just feel like you were sent to me from the men's department. Totally weird, right? And I said, Professor, I think I was sent to you from the common sense department. Not everything that is going on can be the fault of men. There's got to be something else going on here. And we traded back and forth, and I knew already that I was going to have to stay after school and write I am a feminist on the board, because that was always the punishment. And then I said to her, I clued her in, and I slam dunked it. And many people who know my story, who follow me, who know sort of my longer story to conversion, know that when I was in college, I actually had an eating disorder. This was what was unique about the situation. This is what got under my skin. And I said to her, I said that to her in the class. I was sitting in a class and I was learning from a woman that my eating disorder was because of men. And yet I knew it had nothing to do with men. I knew that it had nothing to do with weight. It was a control mechanism because of something that happened to me in high school. It was the only way that I felt that I could assert control over my life. I can count how many calories I eat. I can't control everything on, but I can count how many calories I eat. I knew that. And yet here she was, not interested in the pursuit of conversation, not interested in learning about women, but rather in brainwashing women to believe that their problems were because of men and because of a male-dominated society, because of the God-forsaken patriarchy. That was a lesson that I didn't realize until years later. It was my earliest lesson in the difference between conservatism and liberalism, because liberals, you see, when liberals have a problem, they do this thing where they look externally, right? If I'm poor, it's because of rich people. If I have a problem because as a black person, it's because of white people. If I have a problem as a woman, it's because of men. If I have a problem as a short person, it's because of tall people, right? It's like the opposite game, right? Whatever it is, it's the opposite's problem. And conservatives, we do this really weird thing where we look internally, right? And we say, I have a problem and I need to fix it. And I am the author of my own destiny. That's called personal responsibility. Personal responsibility is a tough sell. You want to know why the left, you can get so many people behind them. It's an easier sell to say you're responsible for nothing. Nobody ever run a presidential election with the slogan, be more responsible, right? Here's what I'm going to do when we get in office. I'm going to encourage you all to be more responsible, vote for me. No one wins that way. It's so much easier to say, nothing's your fault and everything's going to be free. It's like a mock election in 5th grade. I remember that. Kids that ran in 5th grade said, cafeteria lunch is going to be free. And now we have actual presidential contenders doing that. So it's amazing. It's amazing to see that. Responsibility is a tough sell. And it's hard to be responsible every single day. It's hard to adult every single day, right? To know that there's no break. This is it. We're here. We got to do this adult thing for the rest of our lives. It's hard. But if you can tell people, if you can communicate to people how gratifying it is. That's the thing that I try to communicate most when I speak to so many Black Americans who are under the spell of the left, so many liberals on campus and on college campuses that really believe that social justice is going to be the best thing they can do in their lives, or that their degree in feminist dance theory is going to earn them. Why is there a wage gap? Well, not too many feminist dance theorists that are needed in society, as it turns out, so. That's our job. It's tougher. It's tougher to make people realize that, yes, the work is harder, but the end is more gratifying. It is so gratifying for me to know, to stand up on a stage and to know that I came from nothing. I had no one there to help me. I did not have parents that were wealthy. I didn't have parents that could put 2 dimes together, that could even put a single dollar towards my college education. It's gratifying for me to know that I started my life $160,000 in debt because of student loans that I took out but I didn't need, that nobody could help me with. It's gratifying for me to know that the odds were stacked against me as a person who grew up with an alcoholic father and an abusive mother. And it's gratifying for me to know that the thing that saved me was my early years. Conservative seeds that were planted when I was very young by 2 people that had the most influence in my life, my granddad and my grandma. And just a few years in their house when my grandparents came into our roach-infested small apartment that we were living in, and my granddad said, I don't want my grandbabies to grow up like that, and he made us move into his house. Family of 6 moving into their middle-class house, 9 of us in there, and granddad had a lot of rules. And there were a lot of rules that I didn't like. Some of them didn't make any sense, and some still don't make sense. I don't get the no elbows on the table when you eat, but I don't do it. I still don't do it, you know? It's a reflex. I'm like, oops, sorry. Not supposed to be doing that. And there was order, and my grandfather rose every single day at 4 o'clock a.m., maybe because his body's set to that time. You know, his first job started at 4 o'clock a.m. when he was 5 years old, growing up on a sharecropping farm and laying tobacco out to dry, because if he did it any later, the North Carolina heat was too hot. And growing up in his household, he really wanted us to have an upbringing of understanding that hard work is the name of the game. And so at 4 a.m. in the morning, he'd rise. At 5 a.m., he'd start making us a breakfast, a big Southern breakfast, grits, eggs, bacon, pancakes. I mean, crazy. Like, I should be 3,000 pounds. It's just so many calories. And I always thought the purpose of the breakfast was to feed us, but it wasn't. The purpose of the breakfast was because he had time with his grandchildren in the morning, and we had to read the Bible. We had to read the Bible every morning. And he'd go around and he'd ask us questions. And there was order. He'd give out the award that we'd get for our behavior were cups. One cup said granddad, and that meant that you were the best child. There were 4 of us. You were the best child. You get the granddad cups. We all wait as we got hot cocoa too, more calories. We wait for him with the hot cocoa, and we thought it was, coffee, in our 7-year-old mind. And the granddad cup went to the best behaved child, and then the grandma cup was second place, and the third one, I don't know if it said cousin or something. And of course, feminists today would say that's sexist. Why granddad? How is that the best cup? And we talk about scriptures, and then he'd send us out into the world. And he planted those seeds, and it was all about structure. And if we did something wrong, we didn't get yelled at. It was way worse. The punishment was way worse. He'd incorporate us into a prayer, all right? And when I was young, I genuinely, from the bottom of my heart, believed that my grandfather had a direct line to God. Like, pick up the phone, God, right? And I will never forget this morning, and my grandfather is still alive, and we laugh about it to this day. I was exhausted, and in the middle of the night, I just got cold, and I jumped up, and I turned the heat. I turned it all the way up to however high I could go. I was too young to be touching the heat, right? And in the morning, we woke up, and of course, the house was on fire. It was pretty hot. I went down for breakfast all groggy, said good morning, because if you didn't say good morning, my grandfather would not give you a plate. And he would pretend he didn't see you, because you're supposed to greet people in the morning. It's one of his many rules. And I said good morning, got those points, sat down at my seat, and Granddad went into his prayer, and he said, Dear Lord, thank you for the food in which you're about to receive. Please help Candace to remember that she shouldn't be touching the heat. And I jumped up, and I started crying, and I ran. I was humiliated. I couldn't believe that my grandfather ratted me out I was like, couldn't we deal with this in the family lower level court? We're appealing to the Supreme. There was no conversation. You jumped right into that. I cried hysterically. And my granddad came up after me because, he didn't make us cry often. I think he felt a little bad. And he came up after me after the meal concluded, and he said, he was sorry for making me feel bad, but there was order in this house. There was a hierarchy of power in this house, and the respect, the respect. You don't touch the heat when you're a child. There was authority. The concept of authority was something that I was taught when I was young. Now we live in a society where you're not supposed to believe in any type of authority. There's no rules. There's no regulations. The left wants no rules and no regulations. I was blessed that my grandfather and my grandparents, they put those seeds in when I was young. And though I strayed, I came back to it in my adulthood when I realized that liberalism and leftism wasn't serving me, that conservatism, that belief in something bigger than myself would, that believing in the family and believing in that all of the solutions don't come from government. They don't. They come from family, and they come from God. So I know they want to get some questions, and so I will just wrap this up on a feel-good note to let you know that my grandfather, who has never once in his whole life ever called a single person racist, who grew up in a real racist, systemic racist South, segregated South with Ku Klux Klan's members shooting bullets into his home at night, who tells that story with pride, by the way. Do not think of him as a victim. He tells that story to this day with a twinkle of pride. He says, and my daddy would grab the shotgun and shoot back at them boys, right? So if the KKK thought they were terrorizing him, no, that legacy, he cheapens their legacy, right? It's beautiful. My grandfather is now retired, and he moved back down south in his retirement, and he is now the owner of the sharecropping farm that he grew up on. He purchased that farm. That's the American dream. That is what I fight for people to just know simply that hard work is the name of the game, and we do not judge people on skin color, on sex. If you come to this country, you can come to this country with the clothes on your back. If you are willing to work hard, you are willing to make good decisions, if you are willing to stay out of trouble, this country will reward you. That's the American dream. Thank you for having me.
There are microphones on either side of the room, so if you have a question for Candace, line up and she'll take your question.
Hello.
Hey, y'all.
I have a question. Or
Yep. I'm ready for them.
Hello, Candace. How you doing?
Good, thank you.
Hey, I got to see you speak in Napa. I thought you did great.
Thank you.
I had a question for you, but the two other guys thought it was for them. I should have put your name on it. Who's someone that you haven't yet had on your show that you'd like to speak to?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Who's someone that you would like to have on your show that you would like
Thomas
to speak
Sowell would be the greatest blessing. Yeah. I don't know if I'll get that, but yeah, I mean, he would be. I would say that would be it for me. If I could have Thomas Sowell on my show, I would just be floored. So I know he tends to stay on Stanford campus, but maybe somebody knows him. Larry, get me a contact.
to? Thank you.
Thank you.
Candace, over here.
Hello.
Hello, I'm Mark Emerson, and this is my fourth time seeing you. I was at your first Blexit rally in downtown LA, and I handed you a note, and you put it in your pocket with a phone number for Wayne Allen Root. And then I saw you at a private home in Orange County in May, and your now husband, George, took a photo of us together, which I have on my phone. And on that occasion, then I saw you at TPUSA in West Palm Beach. Now, I made a statement. If you remember, you were standing in the living room. There were about 50 people there, people on the sofa, people standing up, and there was one man sitting on the floor with a hat, and that was me. And you made do you remember? Maybe not. But anyway, so you made a statement, and you said you were kind of lamenting, kind of reflecting, and you went, am I crazy? And I responded to that, and I want to revise my response to you. I said, no, you have common sense. I want to revise that now. Candace, no, you are a genius.
Thank you so much.
You are a genius at culture, and a genius at debate, and a genius at making statements very small, taking very big ideas and stating them in very few words with tremendous impact.
Thank you so
much.
much.
Love you dearly. I pray for you all the time. May you be totally blessed and completely successful.
Thank you so much, sir.
Hi, Candace.
Hi.
Hi. I have a question about messaging. Margaret Thatcher, Pope John Paul, and President Reagan brought down communism really without firing a shot. With the Democrats finally being honest about their views towards socialism, why doesn't the Trump Republican movement really push the fact that conservatives beat communism once and can do it again? You really never hear that.
Well, I think first and foremost, I'm definitely agree with you. I actually think right now, if somebody asked me who's doing the most for the conservative movement in terms of speaking out against communism, the answer is Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. I love her. I love her, okay? People like to give her crap. but she is confidently stupid. Confidently, right?
Sure.
We need more of that. A little bit. If you will go out there and you will be that bold and say exactly what you want to do. See, before it was more dangerous because the left was taking over America quietly. They were good at it. They were hiding their intentions and they were doing it quietly. And that's why so many people were asleep. But when you have people that are out there boldly saying what they want to do, people are finally having the debate about what socialism and communism is. And they weren't doing that before you got these AOC types that were just outright saying they want to shake you down. So I appreciate them in that regard. I think that definitely more of an effort could be done. I always think that conservatives and Republicans, our biggest issue is messaging. The left is better at messaging. The left is better at culture. And what I found when I got into this was that conservatives, there's definitely a Puritan strand of conservatism. If I could tell you, the first hit pieces that were written about me were not just written by the left, they were written on the right as well. I will never forget reading National Review tell conservatives when I was new and I was on YouTube and I was using humor to communicate ideas, that this is their exact words were, this is the sort of conservatism that we need to reject. Because it was funny, right? Because I guess there's a strand of Puritan conservatives that think if you're not giving a lecture at Harvard and being severe and sincere all the time, that means that you shouldn't be among their class. That is why the left has won. Because they've said, we'll be funny, we'll do Saturday Night Live, and we'll get people to digest our ideas better. Being able to over-intellectualize an idea doesn't make you smart. Being able to effectively communicate ideas so every single person in the room can understand it makes you smart. And I agree with you that the right needs to get better at that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, hi. Before I thank you, I want to thank this organization. I was bar mitzvahed, but I didn't know about it until a week ago. I want to thank you for coming. What you've just done is you inspire people. We're not going to make any changes without inspiration. That's how it's done. I wrote about this when Trump was elected. I'm a psychologist, and I was asked to start an organization to help psychologists do a better job. We're going to call it Mental Health Professionals for Sane Politics. We have political psychosis going on right now. And I didn't think until Trump was elected I would see in my lifetime something that would actually turn things around. And you're burdened. Larry Elder is burdened. Dennis Prager is burdened. I'm burdened because I wrote something about this to make a turnaround. I believe we have a window of opportunity that's very narrow. How do you propose to fill that window in a short time?
Well, I think I've done it as much as I can. I mean, I can't travel more than 7 days a week. So I think the first thing is the best way for us to fill it is to fight the war culturally. What Andrew Breitbart said is absolutely correct. Politics is downstream from culture. He who yields culture yields politics. The reason why we have this window of opportunity is because Trump is the most cultural president that we've ever had. Going back to my point of all I knew him through was my television screen. He is able to effectively communicate ideas with hashtag lock her up, right? A lot he's saying there, but a little hashtag works. And so to the people that I know, there are some people in this room that say, oh, I love Trump, I just wish he wouldn't tweet. Nope, Trump should never stop tweeting. It is exactly how he won. Do I agree with 100% of every single thing he says? No, but that is, I'm willing to take not agreeing with everything he says to have a country. So there you go.
Great answer. Great answer.
So thank you again, Candace, for coming out. It's wonderful to see you in person after obviously all the videos and various media places you're at. Like Bruce was alluding to, this being here takes courage. Now, what was 10 years ago, courage meant maybe coming out of the closet or just coming out as something like that in the LGBT community. The courage nowadays is what you're doing. I don't think I'm saying anything that you don't know or that people here don't know, that there's a stigma around our conservatism, and it takes bravery and courage to do what you're doing and to do it on a massive scale. So thank you for doing that and giving extra courage to people like me who has a wife who's liberal and whose in-laws are all crazy liberals.
So you have a wife who's liberal?
Yeah.
That's amazing. Great. I'm glad you guys, I know people have gotten divorced, so that's great.
I know.
I literally had someone on my show. I was like, whoa, great.
Yeah, it gets heated. I try not to be emotional. not going to say anything about the other gender's emotional aspects here, but she can. Anyway, I just want to quickly say one other statement and then ask you a quick question. I actually followed Nicole Arbor and saw that she posted that she's on your show and went to her comedy show because she's hilarious. And I just briefly went up there and she speaks highly of you, as I'm sure you already know, and it was very fun to just chat with her. So I look forward to that. I don't know when it's going to air. I feel like it was already 2 months ago that you did it, but I'm looking forward to it being. I know I'm rambling and I'll stop. I just had one very quick question because I'm absolutely shameless and I accosted Larry to get a selfie. Can I get a selfie with you really quickly?
Did you go through all of that for a selfie? So can I give him a round of applause? I mean, he went through all that. Yes, you can have a selfie. Next question. Millennials, right?
I'm crazy.
Sir.
Candace, you're amazingly inspiring, and your talk was magnificent, so thank you for being here. And by the way, thank you for taking a picture with me. I'm going to text it to my friends and tell them I proposed, so I'm starting a rumor. My question for you is, what happened to what I thought was automatic, the kind of alliance that Jewish people have with the black community? I've seen that deteriorating.
Right.
And I coach, and I see it even with young kids and in the conversation. What happened to that bond that I thought was unbreakable?
Yeah, so I have a theory about that, and it's a theory that I'm going to explore next year because I'm doing Blexit. I can't do Jexit for you guys, but I'm going to get into it in 2021. So that is correct. Jewish people and black people have always had a unique relationship. There's something about struggle that has always bonded the black community and the Jewish community, and lest we forget, there was a time, the progressive era, this country hated Jewish people as well. I mean, there were quotas on how many Jews could get into Harvard as early as 1920. You guys weren't allowed to even have too many people in certain schools because you were considered a group of people that when eugenicism was spreading, they just did not want breeding. Same with blacks, same with other immigrant groups from Eastern Europe. So I had an experience when I lived in Philadelphia a year ago, and it is something that I would like to really focus on in 2021 and start seeing what effort we can make with my Blexit organization. So when I lived in Philadelphia, I was amazed to see how many black people were wearing hijabs. I was like, what's going on? Why are there so many black Muslims? This is totally weird. Black people are naturally Christian. Black Americans, that is, are Christian. We are deeply faithful and more Christian than most. And so one day I was in a taxi cab and I started talking to the Uber driver and I said to him, "What is this? Why are there so many black Muslims? It's totally bizarre. I've never seen this." And he said, "Oh, I used to be a Muslim." And I said, "What do you mean you used to be a Muslim?" He said, "Oh, I converted back to Christianity, but I was Muslim for a couple of years." And I said, "Well, why were you a Muslim for a couple of years? Like, what am I missing here? Is everyone just trying it for a couple of years?" And he said, "No, I served time in prison." And I said, "Well, that's interesting. What do you mean by that?" And he said, in prison, when you get there and you're young and you're scared and you have a year, a couple of years going to be there, you don't know who's going to try to kill you, beat you up. The Islamic Brotherhood approaches you and says, we'll take care of you. We'll take care of you. Join the Islamic Brotherhood and we will take care of you. And you convert. And he said to me, "I never read a single passage of the Quran, but I felt indebted to them." And he came out and he was a Muslim. That was it. That was all it took. Ayaan Hirsi Ali wrote a wonderful piece in the Wall Street Journal warning us about this epidemic way before it happened. She called them jihadist conversion centers, okay? They are actively learning to hate Western ideals and to hate Jewish people in the prison systems. They send the imams. The conversion rate, 83% of all conversions in prison are to Islam. Stunning, okay? No one, if you're paying attention to these attacks of black people that are happening against Jewish people, they're all happening very close to prisons. New York City, Rikers Island, Philadelphia. There's the seventh biggest prison in America. These are the biggest prisons, and where you're seeing this happen is where people are naturally leaving and re-entering society. That is my theory, and it's not a theory. These are all facts, and I'm looking forward to. I've had conversations with, a couple of power hitters in the Jewish community, and I've said I'm going to take this on. I need to focus on 2020 and Blexit because we need to have a country that I can take this on in. But that's up next. So there you go. Hello.
God bless you. Candy.
Do you want a selfie? Is that okay? I'm just checking.
No, but I want you and Larry to go from strength to strength. To just
Thank you.
keep doing what you're doing. It's wonderful. I saw you at first time at UCLA with Charlie Kirk, and then at Freedom Fest. So it's great to see you continuing. But I wanted to follow up with what you were just talking about. About 2 weeks ago, I think, I saw something very frightening. The irreverent, dishonorable Louis Farrakhan spoke in Detroit to an audience, I think, twice as large as this. And what is the situation with the rise of the Nation of Islam, and also how can that be exposed as the hyper-racism and sexism that it is?
You know what? I'm actually going to bump this question to Larry because this is one of those things, just so you guys know, whenever I have questions about anything, I call Larry. I don't know what he's doing in the middle of the day. I'm like, Larry. Tell me about how this got started. Like the Louis Farrakhan thing is fascinating to me, and it's more historical. Like I can give you my opinion for right now, but I'm going to bump this to Larry because I feel like he'll have a better answer.
Candace, I'm off work right now, actually. The Louis Farrakhan thing is fascinating, isn't it? He is clearly the nation's most prominent anti-Semite, and yet the Black Congressional Caucus refuses to denounce him. This is a party that constantly talks about racism, but they've got a guy, Louis Farrakhan, who the Congressional Black Caucus refuses to denounce. Also, the kingmaker of the Democratic Party is a guy named Al Sharpton, who's also engaged in a lot of anti-Semitism, referred to Jews as diamond merchants. He was in the thick of the Crown Heights riot in 1991 that one Jewish leader referred to as the most serious pogrom in the history of this country. There's a serious problem with anti-Semitism within the black community. About 12% of the country, the Gentiles, non-black Gentiles, or about 12% could be described as anti-Semitic according to the Anti-Defamation League. Twice as many blacks, however, are properly described as anti-Semitic. There's a huge problem within the black community regarding anti-Semitism, and it largely stems from flat-out ignorance. As Candace pointed out, we've had a long history of getting along well, of supporting each other, but recently, because of the people like Louis Farrakhan, it's taken a turn. Most people don't know how influential Jews have been in the history of this country for black people. A man named Julius Rosenwald helped Booker T. Washington build something like 5,000 schools. A Jew co-founded the NAACP. Jack Greenberg was one of the minds behind the legal strategy that ultimately was successful in Brown versus Board of Education. 3/4 of the whites who went in the early 60s in the freedom fighters on freedom rides to desegregate buses, 3/4 of them were Jewish. The 3 people that were killed in Mississippi burning, Schwermer, Goodman, and Cheney, 2 of the 3 were Jewish. Jews have been very friendly towards blacks. Israel airlifted something like 15,000 Ethiopian Jews out of Africa who were being persecuted and were facing famine in the mid-'80s and early '90s, and yet most black people are completely ignorant about all of this. So the real problem is within the black community. We need to do something about it.
Thank you.
I also hope you guys realize why I would never debate Larry Elder. See, Dave Rubin, fatal step. I'm like, I'm glad we're on the same side because I'd never debate you. Never debate you.
Hi, hello.
Hey.
My name is Eileen Smallson, and you're a superhero above Wonder Woman, right, everybody? Okay. I know that you go to the colleges and talk about, what you specialize in. I'm a little nervous, but I think it's important that if you can, in the future, write a book for children, for conservative principles, because I know there's books out there. There was just one about, how it was in color, a book that they were reading to the kids, that the little boy dressed in a girl's outfit. And it's a book that the teachers are reading to kindergarten. And then, mommy, we have 2 mommies, 2 daddies. So I think hopefully in the future, maybe you can write a book that will go to the younger kids, and because that's where it starts, when they're younger.
Right. Well, first of all, the left will burn it, but it's fine. And it's funny that you say that because I yesterday had a man on my podcast named Jocko Willink. and he writes children's books. And on the episode, I said I should do this for young women because he does it for young boys. Like, you know, it's okay to be a man sort of a thing, wrapped into a fantasy story about fear and all of those things. And it's incredible what he does. Jocko Willink, if you want to look him up, he writes these incredible tales, but it's all geared towards young men. And I agree with you that there needs to be a beginning from young girls to know that, like, it's okay, you know, to like girly things. Like femininity is suddenly being threatened, and this pressure to be like a boy, like a man. Like a woman should want to do it all, birth the children, go to. I don't want to do all of that. This is the worst deal ever. Like, what were they fighting for, right? I mean, I want you do everything like a guy, and at the end, what it's showing, if you look at statistics, women are miserable. They're miserable when they're being told to do it without men and to do the job of the male and the female. And so much of that starts with early breeding, with these woke parents trying to tell them that this is what they should want, that they should over-sexualize themselves, that modesty is not in vogue, that they should be sexier. And also, ironically, we just started talking about for my show, and we're testing the first episode tomorrow, of doing just me talking to the camera, giving just advice to young women, you know, young women and young men, telling them, you know, it's okay to be normal. We'll play with that name. It's okay to be normal by Candace Owens.
There you go.
Sir.
Thank you.
Candace,
Thank you.
Thank you for being here tonight, and I appreciate the fact that you got out of your comfort zone as a younger woman and that you actually explored other options. Knowledge is always going to be king. It's always going to be the basis of all of our strengths, even if that knowledge comes from something we're not comfortable with, especially if that knowledge comes from something we're not comfortable with. I came with a large group that we've been together for many, many years, brought together by a common joy of things that many people might not like here. We smoke cigars on occasion together. Boo, I know. But the point of the matter is we came together under something that society may not really appreciate. What's fascinating about our group that has been together for multiple years is we're a mix of about a third black, probably half Jews, and the other is a smattering of all sorts of things. And we actually get out of our comfort zones and discuss exactly what it is our histories represent, whether we grew up on the streets, whether we grew up in a Jewish community, wherever we came from, Jamaica, we have from all over the world. And we know that we're black and we know that we're Jewish, but that's irrelevant because we have a common joy. I'd like to make 2 points if I can, and I'm a Jew, so I never give up a microphone to the best of my ability. The first point I make is that you have been black all your life, and I've been Jewish all my life. I'm old enough to have experienced anti-Semitism, not being allowed to join certain clubs, possibly not being allowed to associate with certain people. And I always understood that as I grew older, I realized it wasn't about me, it was about fear. My history of being Jewish has been taught that my forefathers suffered so that I could be here. My forefathers did some great stuff, and my forefathers did some bad stuff. We're not defined by the bad stuff or the good stuff. We're defined by the commonality of our history. We don't destroy the bad stuff. We celebrate it, we recognize it, and we teach it to our children. The commonality of black and Jewish is so intertwined other than the methodology by which we came to America. The point of the... I'm sorry? Oh, it's not a question. My final point is, the teaching in front of a Jewish community with a black woman, we are so similar that the teaching of black history must be done, both the good and the bad, to the children of black families, so that we celebrate and we let our children know that we don't move forward without the knowledge of what the future could hold. That was my point. It's a Jewish group. The commonality is incredible. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Sheer. I just wanted to introduce myself first and say I've admired you since I went through very similar high school experiences to the girls that you babysat. That's when I started following PragerU, and I really admire you for telling the whole truth, so thank you. I wanted to ask, something that I noticed is that we're all busy. We all have, a lot going on in our lives. So we have a limited number of things that we can care about deeply. How do you get people who aren't part of the group to care about the issues that the group has? And this can apply to anything. Like for me personally, I'm Israeli American, so something that really, really hits home is Zionism, anti-Semitism. Those are the issues I care about. But even, you said you're more Jewish than a lot of Jewish people that you know, and I completely agree with that, because even within our group, it's hard to get people to care. So forget outside of the group. So I'm asking, what do you think gets people to care?
I think it's different with every group. I say that first off, definitely what you want to hit on is everybody has survival instinct, right? So despite how busy you are, everybody eats every single day, everybody drinks water every single day. And a lot of the stuff we're talking about is about survival, right? Black America, do you want to survive or not? Have you been surviving? Have you been thriving? I believe that the threat, putting that fear in them that, by the way, all this dialogue and race dialogue will die as soon as the Democrats can get enough illegals over the border, because your vote's not going to matter. Your vote is the most important vote now. It could instantly be the least important vote if they get enough illegals over the border and they import another victim class. Also, in terms of talking about the differences in the way every culture communicates, with Black America, people sometimes, Dr. Ben Carson asked me actually, he said, you know, I've been doing this my whole life, talking about conservative principles, and yet you've been able to make such an impact in such a short time. How? And it's a compliment, right, on the one hand, because A, Dr. Ben Carson is much smarter than I, Dr. Condoleezza Rice is smarter than I, Dr. Thomas Sowell is smarter than I, Larry Elder is smarter than I can guarantee you that they've lived longer, they've read more books, and they're better in terms of what they know. But what I've done differently is I've just been rude. Right? Because I realized that being nice wasn't working with Black people, right? The hand-holding wasn't working with Black people. So, you know, Dr. Ben Carson, they say, you're an Uncle Tom, and he's like, oh, I'm not going to take, I'm way too intellectual, I'm not going to get on your level. And I'm like, really? Because what level are you on? Because I am happy to meet you here and tell you why I think you're an idiot, and that the fact that you even call me an Uncle Tom means you haven't read the book, Uncle Tom's Cabin, because he was the hero, right? So it's really, I think it's a style thing. If you realize that they're not paying attention, switch up the style, because once I started being rude back, and they were so shocked because you've just been able to call Black people Uncle Toms forever and never get a mean response, then they got even more mad. It's like, who does this girl think she is? We've been doing this for decades. We just call them Uncle Tom and they go quiet. So understanding the culture and the group that you're trying to affect, and sometimes using their own tactics, works.
Thank you.
Yeah. You want to wrap?
One more question. Last question. Over there. Oh, that side? Okay.
Sorry. Yeah, sorry. That side.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being here tonight. I'm a psychologist in juvenile hall, and you've really helped to inspire and shape the way that I work with the youth there, which has changed significantly over the last few years. But the message of victimhood from both the staff and the youth is really, really pervasive and disheartening. Is there one message you can, if you were to stand in front of the boys, you would give them?
Juvenile, like you're saying in juvenile, like delinquent center.
Yeah.
I think, you know, one of the best messages that you can give to them is a message of hope, which is that you're allowed to start your life over whenever you want. This is something that's very unique about America. We forgive. You can go into bankruptcy 7 times and you can start over. You can start your life leading a life of doing things that will end you in a juvenile detention. You can start over, right? And I think what the left has done really well, and it's a horrible thing, is they try to tether people to their pasts. And people believe that you make one mistake and you're done. And this is the danger, by the way, of this cancel culture, right? When you tell somebody that a tweet they sent 13 years ago is disqualifying them from a job 16 years later, you are going to see an increase in depression and suicide and a feeling of being trapped. I do the opposite, right? If you made a mistake and you're willing to own your mistake and you're willing to change your life, you can make something of yourself. This is not your forever, this is your right now. That's the most inspiring message you can give to them. Thank you guys so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Candace Owens. Thank you, Larry Elder. How many people enjoyed this event tonight? For how many people is this your first Jewish Republican Alliance event? Well, we want you back. We want you to get involved. Thank you all for showing the courage to be here tonight. Thank you all. Until we meet again. Bye-bye.